As I said, welcome back to the RWC webinar. Initially, Dato, I thought of playing our video, but when I experimented, when we click the screen sharing, all they see is the visual. They can't hear the sound. The viewers won't be able to hear the sound. So, just to recap, everybody here, those who have logged on, we had an earlier webinar on the 16th of May, just I think about 2 weeks before Raya, and it was an impactful webinar. I think Dato spoke passionately about history of ISN and MSN, and of course a history of his career, how he came about to be where he is, his early days in Raja Muda Aziz Stadium, Raja Muda Stadium in Kuala Lumpur near Kampung Baru, and Dato then also shared with us his experiences with sports contracts, the expansion of the government budget. He gave a hint about the way money was spent, which today we'll talk about it a little bit more in sports integrity. And also Dato went into detail about sports being a unifying factor, trying to get everyone together using sports. It was a really good chat for more than an hour, and based on strong feedback from the viewers and your own personal what do you call this, your concession, you said, yeah, let's do it. We agreed to hold a second part after Hari Raya, and here we are. 1 week after Raya, we are holding a part 2 with Datuk Dr. Ramlan. Without further ado, I'll just quickly reintroduce Datuk for the benefit of those who are viewing for the first time. And then I think there will be more people coming in to watch the video as we go along. Basically, Datuk Dr. Ramlan is one of the rare government officers who had managed to serve in a few major sports agencies under the ministry. He's, of course, the former DG of MSN, also known as, in English, is NSC, right, Dato? MSN, NSC.
National Sports Council,
National Sports Council. In Bahasa Malaysia, is Majlis Sukan Negara. And then, of course, he was also a former CEO of ISN, the National Sports Institute. And at one time, you were director of ADAMAS, Anti-Doping Agency of Malaysia. And now, of course, you're happily retired. And but potentially, I hope the government will still take you back as a contractual officer, because your experience will, in my view, would go to waste if not tapped on. I think the government should tap on your experience to sustain and maintain the standards of sports. Yep. So with that simple introduction, Datuk, can I invite you to maybe just say hello first for maybe 1 minute before we go into the topic? All right, Datuk.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for having me back once again for this dialogue. And what I will do is I will try to weave in quite a bit of what we had discussed 2 weeks ago now. 2 weeks, yes. And as a sort of reiterating some of the points that I had mentioned before, and also some of the points I had made before, I had asserted before, are worth repeating anyway, because of the importance, and perhaps the fact that a lot of the things and concepts that I had mentioned were perhaps quite new to some people outside the specialized sports community, maybe with the lawyers amongst you, and even with some of the sports personalities as well, because sometimes we know that sports is still a cross section of society at large, and because of that, we cannot expect sport to be immune or separate from the vagaries or the weaknesses or the problems that we experience in society. So a lot of the issues that we experience in society is still quite prevalent amongst sports. But however, since we attract so much attention from the general public, simply because we are the back pages all the time. People look at the front pages whenever they see the newspapers. Now newspapers are practically obsolete. They will look at the back pages. I'm an old school guy. I like to touch certain things. I like to touch paper and look at it, when I read something. So, but the thing is, it does get the attention, because so many people love sports.
Yes.
And even if some people do not like sports, they are married to somebody who does. Okay. So like me, my wife is not a football fan, but because I watch so much football and other sports, she has to sit beside me, while waiting for her Korean cereals or something like that. So there you go. She gets here with a few things. But the thing is,
go on.
but the thing is, there's so much to cover in the time that we have this morning. But if there is anything, I would anything at all, we would not hesitate to field any questions or any issues that somebody might need. But I'm sure everybody will understand that there's a certain limit or certain distance within which we can throw our rocks, you see, before it gets thrown back at us. Okay.
I'm sure that with your experience and your wealth of knowledge, we will try to cover as much as possible. But to all the viewers watching this, if you have any question to post, feel free to put it on the commentary portion below the video, and we'll try to entertain it later and have a look at it later.
Okay.
Maybe that's all. I know some of your friends have inquired whether you should do this as a permanent basis. Maybe on your own. You don't need me. I mean, on your own, maybe once every month or once every 2 months, you can even have a broadcast. Have a chat with somebody.
I'm not so much the monologue. Basically, I don't speak on my own so well. I'm a sort of a responsive guy. I need somebody to bounce off, whatever I need to say.
Well, RWC will be honored. We will be honored to host you on a monthly or bi-monthly talk. So let's explore that in the coming months. Yeah,
We'll see.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Dato is back for today. Today we will try to cover about 4 topics. Firstly, maybe because of your past close association with ISN, we'll do a very short, but not too detailed, because this is not about that area only. Maybe about the ACTA ISN, a very short one, how it came about in 2011. We were there 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we were going to talk about it, but we never finished it. Then, but very importantly, I think the topics that we want to touch is about sports integrity. Sports integrity is an interesting issue during your time, and maybe a quirky discussion about politics in sports. It's an elephant in the room. Nobody talks about it. Nobody wants to talk about it, but we know it's there.
Right in the corner there. Yeah.
It's there in the corner, And then, of course, we like to end by talking about potential reforms, and if any, do we need reforms? And if we do, what reforms do we need? So, what we'll start off, Dato, is this. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about ISN and the Act of Parliament, your involvement in MSN. Of course, the Act of Parliament for MSN is well established. They've been around for a long time. And I think the entire Malaysia sports community know what MSN is supposed to do. But I think for ISN, the Act of Parliament is fairly new. It's only 2011. It's about 8 to 9 years old. Can you maybe in a short point, Dato, just a year or two before ISN Act, could you give us a quick historical background how it led to the Act in 2011?
Okay. You see, when I was appointed as the DG of National Sports Council in 2005, the intention by the Minister of the time, Yang Berhormat Datuk Sri Azanina, was clearly to effect some manner of transformation for the National Sports Council of Malaysia, which at the time was already a very mature agency, whose act had been established in 1971, 70. I stand to be corrected here. But at that point, even before any thought about transforming or changing through legal grounds or anything like that, there was still some management and operational issues that required some revisiting and looking at and improvement were deemed necessary. So the important bit was that because of my background as I wasn't, I still am not a bureaucrat of any worth, but being a technocrat and basically a medical and a person, a scientist as well. She knew that my approach would be utterly different from my predecessors. And of course, I stand criticized for a long time. He doesn't know how to manage. He doesn't know how to manage, that sort of thing. Of course, I do not know how to manage like you. Okay. But that one I readily... so people are familiar with a certain way of management, which they feel is right, written in stone or something like that. Whereas I know throughout the years, in discussions with the very authority that administered civil service in Malaysia, the Public Services Department, JPA, very good people there, and from the horse's mouth they tell me that they're always open to transforming civil service and how we operate in civil service. It's just a matter of bringing up certain issues, certain problems, and seeking solutions to solve or to obviate or to prevent any problems coming up in the future. So to be more effective rather than just machinery, and to be more human in many ways. So I feel that the National Sports Council, when I first took over in 2005, were basically set in its ways, in many ways. And I just give you a brief illustration, nothing specific. But if there were any applications, okay, for any equipment or any new acquisition, all right? For example, this is just an example. If somebody was to say, Dato, we would like to buy new 3,000 arrows, for example. Yes, 3,000 arrows. And then I would say, okay, we'll have a look at the application. And then I would ask, what happened to the old arrows? Right? Okay, simple question. Because if I am not an expert in managing that way, therefore I will have the right, I reserve the right to ask the stupid questions. The questions that actually want clear answers. So they will say, oh no, we do not know. Then I say, good, why don't you go back, come back in 2 weeks, let me know what happened to the old arrows, okay, look at them, make a report, and we'll have a look, okay? So that's the situation. So this was deemed as not smooth or efficient management. But you really have to ask these questions, because sometimes you just spend money without actually needing to spend money unnecessarily. That's one thing. The other thing is, even if you need to spend the money, what about finding out how we want to deploy arrows which are still serviceable, still usable, that sort of thing. So I just wanted clarity so that we can make a well-considered and fair decision all around. There were other bits and pieces as well. So coming back to ISN Act. Sorry. I got derailed a bit.
No, but the point is that this historical background explains why we need ISN. And I recall our discussions that of course MSN of course has been a leading government agency. They are fantastic in some of the things they do. Of course, people in sports community will have some perhaps some feedback on how MSN can become better. Okay. We understand that. But ISN was supposed to transform, going to science, going to sports science. So how did that, from Azalina's time, how did it reach 2011 and eventually coming to the Act?
Okay, yep. If you want to go back as far back as 2007, when it was when MSN and ISN was split, all right, we'll have to go back a little bit further to the mid-80s, right? In the mid-80s, there is a document actually worked on and by the National Sports Council itself under the leadership of Datuk Nur Abdullah, the first Director General of the National Sports Council in 1983 or 84, like that. He's still alive, Alhamdulillah, Datuk Nur Abdullah. And of course, we can always ask him to corroborate whatever I have to say in public here. The most important thing was that he gave me a copy of some sections of that document where two German experts in sports science, physical education, and sports administration. One of them I remember because I actually met him in 1990 when he visited Malaysia, Professor Helmut Diegel. The other gentleman, his name escapes me at the moment. But the thing was, it does say in that particular document that recommending the establishment of a national sports institute, right? And it had already been established way back then, Institute Sukan Negara Malaysia. So way back in 1985, when the thing was issued. So that document pertained to things that ISN as a national training center for athletes, number one, as the center for coaching education, number two, and number three, as a center for educating other aspects of sports industry like journalism, business, that sort of thing, which boggled my mind when I read that. I said, hey, this is very wide spectrum, okay? Not just as a sports science, sports medical unit. That one by itself was already there. It goes without saying that we were also the center for service, education, research, and the standards to be set in the practice and knowledge acquisition, knowledge management of scientific, medical, and technological matters in sports.
Sounds like a game changer. Really sounds like a game changer at the time, isn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
it was. If you look at that, you cannot help but have a tinge of regret, or perhaps some unrequited, some akin to unrequited love, you know what I'm saying? Where something was supposed to have started a long time ago, never did. As soon as the report was out, it was decided, and this came from Datuk Noh himself. He said that we were not ready, right? So yeah, I understand. What was it that we were not ready for? Because if you don't take the first step, that journey of 1,000, a million steps will never be taken. All right. So what happened was ISN was just established as a small medical unit and placed within the Kementerian Belia dan Sukan. At that point, there was also culture in that. Kementerian Kebudayaan Belia dan Sukan. You see, KKBS. It wasn't KBS, yeah. So culture was inside. Yeah, they were housed in Wisma Kramat. Not far from my childhood home. Yeah. Anyway, that was what happened at the time. And by 1985, the game changed as well, because what happened was we became more and more ambitious in trying to progress in sport. So people like Dr. Ronnie Yeo came on board. He had done, he's a medical doctor who had specialized in sports physiology in the United States.
I actually remember that name. I've seen that name.
Ronnie Yeo.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that name.
Everyone should meet him. He's quite a character. Okay. He's a friend, but I haven't seen him for quite a while now. So anyway, then he was also joined by Datuk Nordin Darus, who was actually the one who brought me in into the Sports Science Division of the National Sports Council at the time in 1990. So when that happened, what transpired after that was that they built up the capability, right, of ISN as a division of the National Sports Council. And then the other people were brought in, Puan Noliza Abdul Hamid in physiology, and then Professor Madhya Zulkifli Kadir of UiTM right now. He's in UiTM. He was in strength and conditioning. And also there were several other people. Another doctor, one of my seniors, Dr. M. Kamarudin. And then we called him Mike. And then there were nurses and medical assistants. And then Zaitun Osman, who was, latterly of the Sports Commissioner's Office. She started as a psychologist. She had graduated after finishing physical education in UPM. She went on to San Diego, I believe.
And she was a really good athlete. Really, really good national athlete.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, legendary. Yes,
Legendary, exactly.
heptathlon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if I recall correctly. And she remains a friend and a colleague, and we remain in touch from time to time. But the thing is, the good thing about that was she understood psychology because being a national athlete, she came on board, and there were several others who did in other areas, in dietetics, and also in rudimentary biomechanics. So it was a rudimentary service at the point, but it was a small start. But when you do things like this, you don't look at uh, it in terms of organizational structure, right? When you do things that have a heavy emphasis on service, you look at the needs for that service, right? So when you look at athletes, you discuss their coaches, because all this exercise is an athlete-centered, coach-led venture. Is an endeavor, and we are the ones who are assisting the coach realize the fullest extent of his plans to get the athlete to achieve optimum performance, okay, in the time that they have set for themselves. And if you look at how later on, when we had become bona fide organization under national law, what happened was we became aware of how to work when we worked with people like John Beasley of cycling, right? So John Beasley will say, Dr. Ramlan, this is my document, my plans for the training for the following year. And then he would leave it with me for about 2 weeks. I'll just, hothouse the thing with my colleagues, my friends and colleagues at ISN, and then we'll come up with our own periodized training plan, right? That then dovetails together with his training plan, his training objectives. Okay? So coaches, training plans, training objectives, and all the various bits and pieces for training and competition, so on and so forth. His targets for the year, what sort of level of importance of those specific targets, then it is married together with his periodized training plan. All right. So when that combination is program latihan. Okay, I get a bit agitated, somewhat annoyed when I go to meetings and I ask for program latihan, and people say, "Oh, this month we're going here, that month we're going there, another month we're going everywhere, somewhere." I say that is not the program. That is a calendar. All right. Thank you for telling me your calendar. Now go back and get me the program. So that's what we used to do, because people are not clear about the demands of the work, because it is not a simple administrative or bureaucratic exercise. We are dealing with human beings who need to go from this point A to B, C, and all the way to Z at the end of the day, when they want to win that medal somewhere along the line that we set, okay, in the training plan. So this training plan has to have its peaks and troughs, because if you look at the principle of training, it's about adaptation to overload. If you don't have that overload, that means you're always comfortable training, you're not going to get any progress physically, physiologically, psychologically. So when you have that program, that means this whole program is something that is a very detailed thing that the admin, finance, and logistical part of any organization which actually rest, because the National Sports Council essentially does program management. The program belongs to them. They have the funding, they have the administrative and financial and logistical authority and responsibility, whereas the National Sports Institute executes the performance management. That means managing the training, the detailed training plan, working with the athlete and the coach. So when you marry both of them, right, then you get that really optimum cooperation of the execution of sport science.
It looks like that. So even way back in the 80s, so you say, the plan was there, it evolved, and then we fast forward to 2011. It came.
They had already known how it should be done. If you look at the Australian Institute of Sport, they had done this ever since they were flummoxed and frustrated by the fact that they did not do well at the Montreal Olympics in '76. So they started small. Now look where they are. The Australian Sports Commission and the Australian Institute of Sport work so well, where the Australian Sports Commission, they will do the admin, the finance, policy formulation and management and all that, together with the federations. Whereas the AIS does everything and anything that has to do with the athlete, including not only the training and the competition planning, so on and so forth, but also their education, planning their lives as well. Because when you have an athlete and you manage them, you have to manage or help them to manage their lives very well. So this is something that we were looking at as a model, but we were not bold enough. Okay, we were not adventurous enough, because we always look at it from how can we do this without actually risking ourselves, without spending too much, so on and so forth. Yeah. So by that time, by the mid-80s, by the time that Dr. Ronnie Yeo, Dr. Nordin Daros, they already knew how they should proceed. All of these concepts, there's nothing new. It didn't occur yesterday. This is something that when you talk to coaches and the countries that we look as advanced in sports management, okay, it might be done by different organizations and so on and so forth. But the approach always will prioritize athlete performance. You have a triangle. You have the athlete at the top, the coach by his side, and the sports science and sports medicine, sports technology people serving that triangle. So this is the main triangle. Anything around it is admin, finance, logistics, and perhaps a bit of politics as well. Because when you deal with the national associations, they are supposed to be the guardians of the sport, their own sport. Right? Whereas we as government agencies, we give you the support that we as much as we can afford. But the fact of the matter is that we cannot pretend to know and to want their particular sport more than they themselves. Yeah. You see? Because if the federations need to be told to be serious about their sport, we are in deep trouble.
Yeah. After all, they are the elected office bearers, so the association would have to. Yeah.
Okay. 2007. 2007. Going back, what happened was that we had gone through about why ISN and MSN were separated. Yes. Yeah. It was in many ways initially divide and conquer, divide and rule sort of situation. But we found a way to work together, and by 2010 we were working very well. In 2007 and 2009, those were years where we were working up the draft, okay, for the rang undang-undang untuk menubuhkan Institut Sukan Negara Malaysia. Okay, 2007 and 2009. I remember vividly many of the meetings that we had at the time. And there was a point when I told my colleagues, I told them, because we were wrangling about services, sports science and sports medicine. At that point, we wanted ISN as an institute to be having first right of refusal. That means we are responsible for the national athletes in performance management as much as the National Sports Council are responsible for program management. So when we do that, we cannot have a situation where the National Sports Council will say, we can send it to you, or maybe we can send it to this other fellow or that other fellow, whomever they choose. That sounds well and fine, but that defeats the purpose of setting up a National Sports Institute as an agency. When somebody who's not familiar with the inner workings of scientific, medical, and technological venture decides that they want to go to somebody else that they might not be familiar with, whereas we are just next door, and there was a very fraught period. Finally, I told them that, look, I have been your Director General for almost 2 years, okay? I love National Sports Council. I do not wish to do anything against you to jeopardize your role and function. But in trying to hold me back, you're holding yourself back, because you ought to be looking at how to improve yourself rather than limiting us. You see? So I had to say that. I'm very open about this because those people are still alive. And if they're listening to this, they will have to nod. because I do not lie. So if in that situation, the most important thing is for them to recognize that all of us, we have to look at our functions and how to improve ourselves, rather than try to stymie and try to limit, other people. These are all smoke and mirrors games. In the end, the people who should be benefiting from our combined and individual work are suffering out there, waiting for us to sort things out between ourselves. So this is what I said to them. In the end, they agreed, because they're all very good and sensible people. Yes, we are not enemies. We just sometimes we get lost in the discussion. We become self-centered. We are navel gazing. We're looking at our own navels without looking at the rest of the world. So that was a breakthrough. And then we sat down and we looked at it, and eventually we came to agreement that ISN will have first right of refusal if we do not know how to do things, or how to do things well enough. We will be referring this to experts outside our organization that we know will have capability, and we will endeavor. But at the same time, in referring this outside, we still retain total responsibility, because
your
you cannot
autonomy, autonomy.
Exactly. Otherwise, if you try to abrogate by just shifting your responsibility to somebody else, okay, you just shift. You cannot escape from the responsibility as the newly emerging national agency, okay, Malaysian agency for athlete performance management. You cannot be doing things just out of convenience. Just because you can't do it, you just shove it to somebody else. No. Even if you refer to somebody else, you still retain control over this. Otherwise, who will be able to monitor what happens to the athlete, how things are unfolding, and how it happens, and be responsible for the outcome of such a referral?
So basically, but that's what, looking at the 2011 Act, eventually the Act was enacted, and ISN, of course, eventually became a statutory body. It looks like ISN Act has even empowered ISN to form alliances, draft subsidiary laws, subsidiary rules, and I think ISN, as you said, can engage experts as and when they are is required. So it looks like the Act of Parliament have empowered ISN in much wider than what it is now to some extent, isn't it?
Okay. As soon as the Act was enacted in 2011, as it happens, it was gazetted on the 16th of September, 2011, which is Malaysia Day. All right. So it was our own surreptitious way of celebrating ISN Day every year as a holiday, because it is a public holiday, Malaysia Day. So it was really fun. But the most important thing was we realized this, but the battle had just begun when you have the ACTA. How to operationalize law or something that has been operating for quite some time, and that the law has clarified things. I remember I mentioned to my colleagues that basically what we were doing at the point when we are separating the two functions between the National Sports Council and the National Sports Institute was when you have grey, right? When you take the black out of the grey, what you are left with is white. So it's just a combination of white and black. So when you see totally white and totally black, then you know you have separated this very well. In the beginning, there was still some confusion, some manner of misgivings or misconceptions about certain things. So there was still a touch of grey. All right. There was some misunderstanding. They said, we will retain the top athletes. You can take care of the less illustrious athletes and the development athletes. And then I look at this and say, are we reading the law properly here, or are we just trying to have our own version of our understanding of what is already written in black and white? So then I went to Datuk Sri Azalina. I said, Datuk Sri, do you realize what's happening? So I explained to her the situation. She said, hey, no, that's not what we intended. So she's put a stop to that immediately. So it's good of her. It was an emphatic and decisive action from her. But the thing is, they still wanted to do sports medicine and sports science with people that they wanted to control. You see, so this is a remnant, not to say that cultural remnant, where previously the reality was that previously the National Sports Council was about everything, everything, admin, finance, logistics, sports science, sports medicine, everything. So when it is separated, they still have some. It's like when you lose, when you are amputated. When somebody gets amputated, you feel a ghost limb, as if the amputated limb is still there. So I think that was something that we can use as an analogy. So it was a ghost limb. So they were thinking, kalau orang Melayu dia panggil apa tau, gila talak. So it was really funny. In fact, my colleagues and I, the same people that were across each other in the meeting table, now laugh at it because we know how silly people can get when they're trying to be protective or whatever that they have, that piece of turf saying that, I'm in control, and everything. So the culture needs to be changed as well, because that sports, the Akta Institut Sukan Negara 2011 is not just a simple document separating authority or even function. It is a new beginning to establish the proper culture of execution of all our sports plans. Whatever the national, not only with the National Sports Institute, but because we have taken the black or the white out. So what remains as pure black or pure white with our brother agency, the National Sports Council, they will have a chance to then transform themselves. All right? They will then feel free to transform themselves without having the baggage, both administrative, financial, whatever you may have, of dealing with this area that they do not have expertise in. Okay, all right. So they can look and see how well they can transform and progress administrative operations, financial procedures, how you can take the government's financial procedures and really do it properly in a way that will spend taxpayers' money properly, efficiently, without running into audit or even integrity problems. All right. So this is something that they need to progress. And I am aware that the National Sports Council has been working very hard to have their own pindaan for their own akta, which is actually I'll be frank about it, it has been overdue. It has been worked on for many years now. And I think I can understand the onerous nature, the very detailed nature of what they wanted to achieve. But you see, at the end of the day, as much as we found it necessary to expedite the establishment of the National Sports Institute Act, was because we wanted to establish a new Badan Berkanun, yes, a new statutory body. But at the same time, we could have taken years, we could have taken more than the 3 years that we actually took between 2007 and 2010 before we got established in 2011. But the thing was, you cannot build a bridge and only cross when the bridge is completely built. All right, you have to have the courage.
About it 2 years ago. 2 years ago,
Exactly.
we spoke about it.
You have courage to cross the
We can
bridge,
walk and do at the same time.
Yeah, just don't fall off into the river and drown. That is all. But you really need to have the courage. And another thing, you cannot be training to swim on land. There will come one day when you need to get into the water and swim, swim better and better each time. So I feel that the sooner this gets done, the better. Anyway, I wish the
So eventually we had the 2011 Act. Gone.
That's the thing. So from 2011, so we would try to operationalize this thing. But by 2012, I had been, taken up by the Ministry of Youth and Sport as an advisor for Datuk Sri Shabrici, Yang Berhormat, Datuk Sri Shabrici at the time. And I became his advisor for 1 year. And that was a year when I had time to ruminate about what needed to be done. At the time, the person who replaced me as the CEO is Datuk Ahmad Shapawi, who's now the present DG of National Sports Council, MSN. But in 2013, what happened is when Yang Berhormat Cik Khairi Jamaluddin became minister, he went round, he just knocked on the door in my room at the 70th floor, because my room as advisor for the minister is on the same floor as the minister, you see. So he just, without any ceremony, just knocked on the door. He said, Doc, would you like to go back to National Sports Institute? And
sounds
then
like
I said,
sounds like
there you go. Then I said, okay, because at the time I had also begun writing articles for the news Sunday Times. There were 6 or 7 articles that I wrote about various aspects of athlete performance and how the sports medicine and the sports administration dovetail nicely to support the athletes' performance progress. So he was intrigued. He actually read every single word, you know. So he actually brought up an issue. We were having tea one day after the cabinet post-cabinet meeting, and he mentioned thing almost verbatim. He said, you know, he's got a great mind, you see. So he would just say, "Oh, no, you were saying this, that, and the other. What do you mean by that?" So I was surprised, you know. Hardly anybody would, you know.
Someone's actually reading. Yeah, someone's actually reading.
You know, my habit, I have a way of making long sentences. By the time you get to the middle part, you're already, you know, almost asleep. So anyway, so I told him basically the difference between program management, performance management, and how important it is to always prioritize athletes' performance, you know. So basically, in a nutshell, that was the issue. But I told that through stories about actual happenings, about people like Datuk Lee Chong Wei, badminton players, hockey players. I was a team doctor, you remember, for 16 years. So there were so many things. Those were the things that actually gave me a great start, you know, because when you are down in the trenches with the athletes, you know, giving them service, you cannot run away from the fact and suddenly transform yourself into some sort of ogre when you are in power, thinking that all of that is nonsense, because you still serve the athlete. It's just that you serve the athlete in a different manner, in a more authoritative, sort of situation where you might stand a better chance of actually transforming things for the betterment of the athlete. So I felt, so that was the issue then, because the ACTA, or the National Sports Institute, set us up in a way that transformed. But even then, even now, we're just perhaps just going through maybe what 20-30% of our
In fact, the main reason why Dato, I'm raising this discussion.
Yes.
Of course, I'm not here to support Adamas over MSN, MSN over ISN. That is not my intention. But it's because every time a new minister comes in for sports, there's always rumors that MSN and ISN will be reunited again. When I find it incredible. And if you look at the history, it took so many years to have 2 separate organizations with 2 separate specialty, and then to re-merge it doesn't make sense, lah. So I hope that people like you, when you speak, it puts into record the purpose and intention of having 2 separate organizations of MSN and ISN, and even Adamas or whatever in future we will have a separate Adamas. But it's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. So you don't go back to that. But you know, Dato, sorry, I because it's only 11:45. I really want to move on to the next topic. We spent 45 minutes. Yeah, I was hoping to spend only 10 minutes on this, but you know, because you're full of information, I will never stop you. It is so interesting to listen to your input. Now, so but flowing from that, Dato, one of the interesting thing about having these 2 broken up this way is that, of course, we want to transform the way sports is run. We want to transform the way sports is from its, of course, one of it is from a scientific point of view, but also management of athletes. And I don't mean the MSN version of management. I'm talking about the health management, the KPI management, like the way when Podium was under ISN, you know. There's always in all this issue, there's always this element of integrity. There's always this hush hush that there's something going on, and you raised it just now about the arrow. The arrow was a classic one, and for years, for decades, we've heard, read, and popular and well-known sports journalists have long written down that even notwithstanding MSN, ISN, Stadium Board, Adamas, and all the Jabatan Belia dan Sukan, and all so many government agencies, but there's an element of sports integrity which was always there. What are your observations, Dato', and of course your comments about the maintenance of sports integrity, whether we do have an effective sports integrity culture? Like look at FIFA and IOC, they clean up the whole FIFA and IOC to maintain the value of the sport, to maintain the integrity of the sports. The Olympic Council went through a massive revamp after the Salt Lake City fiasco. The alleged, well, it's no more alleged. It used to be alleged corruption. It's no more alleged. It is proven corruption. And you see now FIFA former presidents, even famous football players, administrators like Michael Platini is being arrested and charged. So what is your observation with regards to the Malaysian context of sports integrity? All yours, Dato'.
Well, if you speak about corruption, there's one big chunk of what we see integrity as. Okay, if we were to go through that, fertile ground for discussion between manner of people in various disciplines, law, administration, bureaucracy, so on and so forth, then we wouldn't have enough time. Yes, but because it is a human failing. That's why you need to have all these mechanisms, rules, regulations, laws, various agencies in charge of acting and preventing corruption, especially when it comes to money, finances, accounting, so on and so forth. But if we can agree that that's a very important part of what integrity is about within sport, that I would like to touch on two areas that I feel get a bit of short shrift simply because we don't see it as integrity. All right, we don't see it as being true to ourselves and to the sport, to the things that we serve. Just like money, if you're not true to what you serve in safeguarding public expenditure, in safeguarding how money goes in and out and how it is kept, okay, and tracking all the spending and all that. So that is financial integrity, accounting integrity, so on and so forth. Even business as well, we have that integrity. But I can touch on two things. Firstly is how we do our work, okay, and why do we do our work. That is integrity as well. And of course, other things we touch on integrity, for example, like doping. Yes, doping is a blight against integrity in sport.
Yes.
Okay, so now when we say that organizationally, operationally, you need to have integrity within an organization, it also means that you have to safeguard the sanctity or the purity of your approach. Okay, and the intention is to always say that the integrity is not best served if we do not serve the best interest of the athlete's performance. We discussed this earlier in the first part, that even the athlete himself, to be true to himself and be a person of integrity, he has to be loyal to his own progress, to his own objectives in achieving all the training objectives, performance objectives. Then he will realize that is actually, all of this is being true and loyal to the nation. The most important thing is that we are not doing this merely for our own sake, for ourselves. Yes, we can say when we win something, we make our parents pleased, our sporting public pleased, and then we are making, we're making National Sports Council happy, National Sports Institute happy, the Ministry of Youth and Sport happy, Minister happy, everybody happy. Okay, but how long are we happy? We'll be happy for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even 3 months. depending on how well we all, celebrate and get into it. But in the end, there is just one instance where you have your performance. But between that and the achievement of the other, down the line, the other bit or piece of it, yes, right? You have that. You need to have a proper, continuous protection of your own training program.
Yeah.
You see, the thing is, the integrity of a training program depends on what the objectives were in the first place. Granted, nothing is written in stone. You have to do what we call titration. That means you exert something, and then you see the response, and then you will adjust the exertion of the next bit of pressure to look at how people respond, and then you adjust your program as you go along. But even then also follows a certain set of rules, which always respects the athlete's physical, physiological, psychological progress. Even his soul must look at that. So if we look at this, then all of this only serves one thing ultimately. It serves the nation. And when you serve the nation is all in entirety. Rukun negara, berapa ada? Itu nation. So you must be, you must be loyal to every single part of that rukun negara. So therefore, we have a bigger picture to serve here, It is not just a matter of being happy for a few weeks and all that. So when you look at that to me is the beginning of the integrity, where you realize that in serving your own performance, that performance serves the nation. So this is something where athletes, when we try to influence them, try to help them to keep on the straight and narrow, all right? Not only athletes, but coaches, sports administrators, national associations, we always have to drum into them. This is a simple concept, but it is all too easily forgotten when we have people very involved in the heat of the moment, in the hurly-burly of getting all of this done. So you need somebody to just take a step back, look at the bigger picture and say, look, we are all doing well here, but that one needs a bit of tweaking here. That one perhaps is not quite right. What my friend. So that sort of thing. There will be several different stages of feedback for them. Now, the thing is, we have to also look at integrity as a culture. This is something that needs to be embedded in the athletes. And of course, because athletes are part of general society, if we are successful in engendering proper integrity with the athlete's performance, you will translate very well, cascade very well into society at large, because athletes are very visible people. They represent the nation. They represent the desires of the nation. And therefore, if any member of the public, any young person, even old person such as me, we look at them and we say, those are the people who represent our hopes and our dreams, and they are people of integrity, and they have conducted themselves with the highest of integrity. So it becomes a standard bearer, a sort of a inspirational, example for all of us to follow, to emulate. So in doing that, we know that the value of what the athlete is achieving, goes far beyond just mere winning of medals and setting records and all that. It becomes an exemplar, good example for people to follow. And I feel that we are missing this because we are not working at it. We are just letting things come into place, fall into place, like some sort of happy accident. It must be worked on. It must be sought after very deeply. And it's something must always be at the back of our minds as we chase that golden pot, at the end of the rainbow. So I feel that that's why when we do talent identification, all right, we want to do talent identification testing as early as possible. Okay? Ideally, not only in terms of the sport, where we need 10, 12, 15 years to get an athlete up to international levels, we also need for them to develop their character. Okay? No, personality is one thing. Character is another. At the end of the day, you may have different personalities, like this, like that, and all that, different styles. But the character must be strong. And one of the facets of a strong character is integrity. So if we can influence them from young, let's not wait until Sukma, when they're 19, 20, 21 years old. The Malay saying, membentuk buluh, So when they're old and tough and not bendable, why are we, hitting ourselves on the head trying to change them? They're more or less set in their ways. We need to get athletes and get at them, educate them, help them to develop their respective characters before puberty. All right.
Well,
So
Dato', what about? Sorry, I just want to just bring you another point. While I think your what you have highlighted so far, the importance of trying to inculcate integrity values in athletes is definitely the way forward. What are your comments and your observations with regards to integrity in sports association, sports organization, like MSN and ISN? Of course, these are dangerous and sensitive areas, but I'm not trying to make you into a whistleblower, but I'm just inquiring, because we see these reports all the time in the newspapers, in magazines, sports blogs, sports journalists always talk about these issues, that there is some element of lack of integrity in sports. And I'm not talking about the personal integrity, I'm talking about financial integrity.
True.
Yeah, because sports is the only industry so far which has very intelligently camouflaged the word corruption. So instead of calling it sports corruption or bribery, they have called it sports integrity. So when I practice sports law and my clients ask me, what is sports integrity? I said, I'm not talking about the integrity of the person. I'm talking about financial integrity, but that's the word we use. So in your observation so far, what you see with regards to integrity in the association and organizations? Of course, being very cautious with what you have to comment, because we are not here to be a whistleblower. All yours, Dato'.
No, bro. I understand the sensitivities involved in such matters. You see, just carrying on a bit about what we were saying.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there. I just wanted to.
No problem. It follows. Because when we have an early start, we shape those athletes. Those athletes will become officials, They'll become office bearers in the national. Soon enough, So we are investing in their future and investing in the way we shape their character and integrity, amongst other things. So that means any work on athletes over a long period of time, monitoring them as well, because things do not remain the same all the time. When I treat patients, I don't assume that just because I give the right medicine that the thing will be solved. I know for a fact that I have to monitor the patient's progress and look at it periodically. So anyway, I understand. Look, first things first. Number one, any organization of any worth, with true intentions and being true to itself, must always choose the right people. Okay? To, number one, lead the organization, number two, operate the organization, and number three, to make it successful all around as one team. Yes? So the concept of having a team is integral to success. So what we need to do here now is that sometimes when we look at people, most of the time we think we know that person. We do not know that person until he or she is tested. All right? And when that person whom we think is the right person to do this, we need to give that person a period of time within which to be true to the objectives or whatever declaration that they had about the reason why they were there in the first place. All these things about manifestos, and so on and so forth. If they do not even, if they cannot even be true to themselves, how can we expect any of them to be true to us? To their own manifesto, right? So a manifesto, in a manner of speaking, this is not just some empty promises. I will do it if I can. I will do it if all things fall into place, everything was right and all that. You take responsibility for it. You strive for it. Then let your public, your community judge you. So this is something which, of course, is redolent is suggestive of mainstream politics and all that, which of course we do not want to touch. Okay, but the most important thing is that then this issue of sports integrity falls into sort of almost hand in hand with sports politics. All right, where it is a series of smoke and mirrors games. From where I stand, and from where I sit at the National Sports Council, National Sports is easier. They want something which is not financial, right? They want service and all that. But they must also remember that all those services cost something, It is still money, taxpayers' money spent on them. But they want the cash, you see. They want to see the ringgit and the cent. Then they are more, they recognize the authority there rather than the service that we give, which costs money all the same. So what we, having both seen both, I feel that sometimes many times association representatives, I can recognize after a while those who are true and those who are not so true. So we cannot have a situation where we apply one rule to the good people and another rule to the bad people. The rule has to be the same for everyone. So what happens is that we have to apply the same rules and regulations that protect our taxpayers' funds, our public funds, because that is what we manage. Even though with MSN it is about the admin and finance, with ISN it's about the spending money on the athletes. It is still the same basic tenet to protect taxpayers' money spending. So the thing is, when they come to us, personally, I need to see, number one, whether they are true to their own declared purpose. All right, I would have, of course, followed how they conduct themselves in the papers, this thing, that thing. I might bring certain things up. I said, certain things came in the paper and all that. I have read the papers, the written word, but what do you have to say about this? I would like to have your opinion about this thing. They'll try to defend themselves. The way they try to defend themselves is also good to see. You know why? Because I'm a medical person, I'm a scientist. I don't work with smokes and mirrors, because otherwise if I do guesswork or if I just guess here, guess there, something will go wrong. All right? Even with our best efforts, things may still go wrong. So we would like to see how objective these people are. There's no use for me to say promises like, oh, we will win, we will qualify for the Olympics, we will win this, we will win that. That is good. After the first line of declarations, I will ask them, how do you propose to do this? Okay, then therein lies the situation, because they say, oh, we will confer with ISN and see how that means we want to see how well they work, and all the way I want to see responsibility and accountability on their part, because when you do this, they cannot see, oh, MSN made that decision, ISN made that decision, Adamas made that decision, so it's not our fault. You see, they have to have a majority share of that responsibility. We are financiers, service providers, and if Adamas anti-doping, we're just doing things which respect the two international documents that we signed. So the fact of the matter is that sense that themselves need to be displayed. We need to be convinced. So if we say, when I was, I'm sure all my predecessors and my people who succeeded me as National Sports Council Director General all have the same basic struggles with national associations, and in doing that, perhaps now we have things like KPIs and all that, and basically you can call it anything you want, but at the end of the day, what's your plan? How are you going to execute this plan? How are you going to monitor this? And in the end, how are we going to account for this and be responsible for the outcomes? So that is it. I have no time for smoke and mirrors games about any ucapan dasar where everybody will try to impress me with words and all that. Because at the end of the day, I just want to hear one thing. We are the National Sports Association. We are the ones who are guardians of our sport. Okay, we are not abrogating this to anybody. we recognize your authority as guardians of the national coffers and the national sports, yes, but we retain the responsibility, and we are men of integrity. We will do this properly. So you see, those are words, but in the end, if we say that your words are all that you are about, then you and track how well these people. Number one, you cannot track them in isolation. You cannot be watching them and waiting for the next scandal or the next piece of spicy news to come out in the papers before you judge them. No, you work with them hand in hand, because only then, when you have your finger on the pulse, if you work at a certain program, if you are a sports manager, you're always trying to number one, on the one, you're trying to support them. On the other hand, you're monitoring how well they're conducting their business, whether they're any good or not. Because you have to have an evaluation at the end of the day, when you evaluate a performance, whether it is success or failure or some point in between. Most things are anyway. There are some points in between. So you have to see whether these people are they learning? Are they of the learning kind? Or Melayu kata apa tau, serik. When you fail, you kena serik. That means you do not wish to fail anymore, right? Ini tak ada. When you try to justify failure by not showing any semblance of regret, or some manner of apology, saying that I will do better and this is how I will do better. Okay? When people say, what to do, they come up with all manners of excuse. I said, fine. You can please reserve that for your memoirs. Okay? You want to talk about excuses. The most important thing is that I want to be clear. If we are going to give you the next batch of money, all right, I have to say that if you get 100% this year, because you are only worth 80% to me, I'm not going to give you 100%. I'm going to give you just 80% next year. So you make sure you succeed with that 80% before you're bumped up back to your 100%. So this is something which is actually objective and clear. There's no personal agenda. There's no personal issue. We might like the person to the skies and all that, but at the end of the day, all of us are not judged on whether we are popular or whether we're looking nice and everybody likes us and all that. It's because the athlete, the ones that we serve properly. So there's always this thing about the blame game, yes? When people say so easy for people to just sack coaches, push athletes around and all that. I must admit I'm quite annoyed, very annoyed actually, in many instances of that, simply because these are convenient targets. Whether anybody who sits on that chair in relative comfort, just affecting the removal of a coach and an athlete, that means you are risking the previous expenditure of public funds, okay, to sort of channel away attention to your own performance, okay, by doing what? By putting every bit of blame on the feet of the coach and the athlete. That itself does a disservice to everything, because if the coach and athlete had put in their best and utter performance, but on the day it just didn't fall into place. That day, it might well become successful another day, right? So that means you're doing a disservice to the progress of just because you get cold feet, you're not getting the reflected glory that you crave so much, standing beside the athlete. So what happens? If that is so, that means you are not serving your own best interest as somebody belonging to an organization that professes to be the guardians of the sport. What are we guarding here anyway? So the most important thing is for us to always be seen, okay? Not just saying, but to be seen to be doing the right things. Because integrity is not just a matter of I'll do whatever I want, the auditors will come in, and then the lawyers will come in, the MACC will come in, and I'll be judged by that. You can say that. This is not an exercise in public chess beating, It's about day to day, hour to hour, how you conduct yourself. You really have to be on the straight and narrow. If you imagine yourself as being on a tightrope, very tightrope, I know that you can fall off any time. you have to be really careful about what you do, how you do it, and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So this is something which, when you talk about integrity, to me, it's like hand in glove. Integrity in politics. For us to acknowledge that it is good politics, it must have good integrity. It must.
Yeah.
Integrity is always good. Yes, right. There's no such thing as bad integrity or good integrity. It's an absolute. So if we look at that, it must be something of integrity with integrity. So if it does not serve, but at the end of the day, how do you display this? What is the tangible result of your integrity in your chosen area of sports administration? So you can point to auditor, even the auditor's report, true as it might be in terms of its professional endeavor, professional result, and all that. Some of the parts, may have to withstand scrutiny, because sometimes people who do audits, they can only understand the situation in relation to the dollars and cents and to the management excellence of a certain organization. But in the end, people who breathe a sigh of relief, when they have a good report or not so bad report from the auditors and all that, must always, in their quiet moments, reflect and know that there's always the greatest auditor up there, who will always be looking at us.
Yeah.
Kita tak takut dia. You know what I'm saying?
Auditor upstairs, yeah.
Auditor.
Yeah.
Nothing escapes. Okay. So
wrap it up. Yeah.
Right. So they intertwine. They intertwine simply because all of this in sport, it is a human venture. Yes, human venture. You see, at this point, I've always made it not imperative, but I'll try my best for those who had been my opposers, or even people who profess to be my enemies or treated me like an enemy. I try to make make good with them. You know why? Because the most important thing is that for us to understand that this is not about our own personal journey in sport. You must never forget you're always serving something else. This is a response from Nick. Yeah, we have to remind ourselves that without the athletes, there is no sport and no NSA. Yes,
I put it in because you commented that, so I'm putting in. Nick agrees with you. Yeah.
Objectivity is paramount. No, objectivity is paramount. That one is truly precious. Thank you, Nick. So simply because the most important thing is that is the only paragon of virtue in a sea of murky things happening. You know why? Because if you don't have anything that says anything with any clarity, that's why I use the term smoke and mirrors. Because smokes and mirrors, there'll be so many words, people trying to, it's all magic tricks. So in the end, I want to see the figures. I want to see the objectivity in the report. Sometimes not everything can be objectivized. Not everything can be put in numbers or in certain, pockets of clarity that way. But in the way you express yourself, I give you one example. I was once reading a report from one of my officers, and he says, kami telah berjaya melakukan program ini. That's all. I said, in the first thing, who is making any judgment whether benda ni berjaya atau tidak? I said, what you should do is, kami telah menguji 125 orang atlet berumur di bawah ni. That is all. I want figures and numbers. How many you done? Who were they? Why were they? So that sort of thing. I do not wish to hear any of this not superfluous, any of these flowery words like kami telah berjaya, kami telah, this is not a drama, for being done for television. This is real life, and you're reporting on things. There are only so many words you can do before you lose my attention. So therefore, this integrity also goes to reporting as well, to monitoring how progress is made. So I feel that the integrity itself in sport, over and above the one that you mentioned about financial management, accounting, so on and so forth, these are the things that need to be approached in a very studiously detailed manner in a way that needs not only to be educated as early as possible, needs to be done with always, continuous improvement in mind, but also to be monitored as well. All right, because I remember last time I insisted on ourselves being audited before the auditors come to audit us. So we had a pre-audit and we hired people to audit us, because in the end, I do not wish to be doing something that I have, sometimes kita terlepas pandang. We lose sight of certain things because we're so busy and we cannot see everything. So it is good for us to be able to be auditing ourselves in a way that is truthful to the mission that we have set ourselves, to help the athletes to get all the success for the nation.
Well,
sorry for so many words.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I see you're so passionate. The points that you raise can see clearly you are passionately advocating sports integrity, and you're hinting. Well, no more hinting. You're talking about how sports politics can affect integrity. On a side note, Dato, let me share with you my personal reason why I wanted to talk about integrity. Of course, other than being a sports lawyer, we deal with sports integrity all the time. But I think many may not know yet, or even if they don't know, they don't know the impact yet about Section 17A of the MACC Act 2009. Of course, the Act doesn't apply directly to sports association, but 17A deals with basically corporate bribery and corporate corruption, basically, right? And in 2018, the Minister for Law, in December 2018, the Minister of Law at the time issued a circular on the kind of parties and the kind of conduct which a company must take place to ensure that there is adequate protection to ensure the company is not charged for corruption. So in summary, 17A works like this. If a worker in a company, or in fact the CEO himself or herself is involved in corruption, bringing in to bring in business for the company, not only can the officer be personally liable, but the company can be liable. And of course, you cannot take a company to court. You cannot go take a handcuff the whole building and bring the building to court. That is not the way. You charge the director, you charge the partner, you charge the president of the company, the financial controller of the company will be charged. So while of course everybody in this on this chat group will say, "But Richard, I am a sports association." Correct, but if anybody deals with the sports association and have carried out corrupt and bribery practices, the company will kena. And we know for a fact a lot of NSAs and a lot of individuals in sports, they have a company, they run a company, So if anybody who's out there unfortunately carrying out bribery practices, please watch out for 17A. So now integrity is not just about the association, but any company running, working together with the association will get affected. And Dato, I'm not surprised one day 17A will be expanded to associations, any associations. I
wouldn't be surprised as well.
Yeah, of course. Some people will tell me, if 17A is expanded to association, then the first association may kena the political association. That is a separate topic altogether. Yeah. So
that gives me an interesting thought, because basically you have that law, Section 17A. At this point, you of course you were alluding to 17A
being a corporate liable.
So, but that doesn't stop us from taking the spirit of that particular section, which is law, which is not applicable to sport, but we can take the spirit, study that, and see how we can operationalize administratively.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that would be good, because that will be maybe seen as a precursor of working out an actual the enactment of any other portion or another section or within the same section, and looking at how it applies specifically to the needs of sport. Yes.
One of the reasons why I'm raising this here now, Dato, is because this is coming into force next week. on 1st of June. So beginning of 1st of June, this act was slotted in, Section 17A was slotted in 2018 when the 2009 Act was amended. It was added in, but it took a long time for it to come into place. And during the Pakistan government's time, the government already announced that they will start this provision. So then, but they, of course, they couldn't see it through because the government fell in February. But the new government have agreed to carry out what Pakistan did and carry on. And this act, this Section 17A, was enacted during the Barisan National Government. So it was at that time.
2009, yes.
I don't want people to always think, Barisan 1MDB, but no. This one is actually during the Barisan time. So so it's very interesting how it moved. And if you look at the act, the guidance by the minister in 2018, because under the law, the minister is supposed to give a guide. And one of the agencies that they are dealing with is Sports Association. So basically, if you are dealing with corrupt practices Sports Association, while the Sports Association may not fall within 17A, there will be other provision to catch the Sports Association. But the company running the bribery practice with the Sports Association, they will kena. The director may kena. So I just thought, so integrity is very important now. I mean, I'm not saying that it wasn't important before this. It has now become even more important because if you really mess up, and if you run a sports company, 17A. So I would recommend all those who are listening to keep an eye on 17A if you have a sports company. Anyway, back to this, Dato. I love the passion of your discussion, and I like how we go into sports politics, because we will end it with politics because it's already 12:25. I want to try and wrap it up so that Nick Lazin said we may have to have a part 3. At the rate we are going, So, but politics and sports, Dato, you've seen it happening a lot of times. In fact, it is addressed specifically in certain sports, like for example, in FIFA. It is very clear that the government cannot come into the local sports football association, of which, if that happens, that association will be suspended, like what happened to Indonesia a few years ago. So this is we know that politics in sports exists, and to some extent, it's even regulated, as in don't come in. But unfortunately, within sports, human characters, I don't like you, you don't like me, you don't get along with each other. It happens. And it unfortunately can affect sports to some extent. In fact, to a large extent. So what are your views and comments and your observation about sport politics in sports? All yours, Dato.
Okay, sometimes we do disservice to the term politics, We have given it a negative connotation when we say politics. It's as if politics is necessarily bad or, somewhat devoid of integrity and sincerity and honesty. But in actual fact, it is not about politics, it's about human beings. So the most important thing is we have to recognize that politics in sport is not only played by people who are adept or who have, maybe a concurrent career in politics as well. It can be played by anybody, by civil servants, by other people in any part of the organization, because what is happening is always a situation where somebody tries to proffer a certain representation of a certain situation as truth, you see, and based on that, they're trying to persuade somebody to support them in a position where then they will be able to further themselves or further whatever cause they are fighting for. So this is politics. It just matter that whether your cause is for good or for not so good, it depends. But the most important thing right now, I've always mentioned that I'm all for the politics of clarity. All right, as a medical person and as a scientist, I cannot work. That's why people say you do not know politics, you do not, you're not good in politics and all that. I look at that as a bit of a compliment, because at the end of the day, if you have somehow engineered a negative connotation of the term politics, when in actual fact it's just a process or a way of affecting something which is basically good, because politics is necessary to enact laws to govern society for the betterment of society. Correct? Yes. But politics doesn't exist in a vacuum just to serve itself. So when that happens, and when you see signs of that happening, where it doesn't serve a greater purpose or greater good, then you know you have to be careful about this. Because at the end of the day, when I say politics with clarity, it's just my way of saying that I will ask you the stupid questions of things that you accuse me of not being aware of or not being expert in. I will ask the stupid questions. Why? Because those questions they need to be answered. For example, the things, if I'm not an expert in finance, administration and all that, I won't pretend to be an expert. I won't sit there and pretend to be an expert of 10 years standing. I'm only an expert. Even then also, there are lots of things I do not know in my own area in medicine. Okay, as much as you know, there is more that you do not know. So let's be humble in the way we conduct ourselves and be truthful. Because at the end of the day, if you are truthful, and we were discussing deeply about integrity in sport just now, that as well, and be objective, in anything that you offer or you proffer as evidence. If you don't have the evidential approach, okay, I have, not that I do not trust you or I do not like you, I am unable to go further with you, because what is there to progress on if you don't show me the figures and the evidence that something is what it actually is and not just what you say it is. So it is something that we have to recognize in this world, because at the end of the day, people lie, all the time to get ahead. That is the reality of life. So let's not pretend that everybody is a lily white. Sometimes we lie a bit here, but that is human nature. You always must want to be truthful, because when you work for the sake of others, that's where the problem is. Kita dosa untuk diri sendiri, kita boleh minta ampun, we can ask for forgiveness from God. But in the end, if our lies affect other people, we have to ask forgiveness from them as well, which is a big thing, When you are into this situation where you are serving so many people, in sports, it's just a small group. Okay, you can go around and beg for forgiveness in about 10 minutes. But if you go further beyond that, I think we know what the score is as far as we're concerned. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that the higher you go, the more accountable you are, the more people you are accountable to. So this is something that everybody should realize. And above all, if only you are accountable to yourself and the deity that you profess to be loyal to, then he will save you, because then between that single entity that you are praying to every day, that means you are then enabled and empowered to be truthful to everybody else. Then there's also the matter of trust. Yes, if people say you must trust me, of course I do not distrust anybody, but I trust figures better. I trust evidence better. At the end of the day, if we have evidence, we have figures, objectivity, this sort of thing, no smokes and mirrors, okay? Because at the end of the day, we can all play that game, but let's be truthful to ourselves. Let's have some shame, in the end of the day, in your quiet moments. Are we proud of ourselves for deluding, for cheating so many people for so many years and all that? Are we proud of ourselves? And when our mortal end comes, are we safe to progress to the next level of existence? I do not know. Sorry for speaking so very much that way, but this is just the product of being Ramadan. At the end of the day, Ramadan remains with you. But the most important thing is I think anything that we want to develop further in sports, in terms of reforms and all that, must always be back. I make no apologies for restating this. You must always be tethered, must be strongly connected to the best interest of the athlete and his performance. Because whatever you do in your sport, like Nick Razin mentioned just now, if there is no athlete, there is no sport, no association. All right. So let us not always be taken away from that pure objective. You must say that, oh, these people are dreamers. They're talking, we are practical people and all that. Oh, come on, who are you trying to delude? Who are you trying to At the end of the day, the most important thing is all of that must translate to success with the athlete. And we know why. We discussed this in the first part, correct?
Yeah.
Because when you succeed, you inspire the whole nation. Yeah. Everybody, forgets the little bit of trouble and become more useful, more progressive as a society. So we have outlined this before. But in acknowledging such usefulness with sport, then I would also urge that we look at the true value of sport. Is the service, the education, the research, the standards set in sport, the administration and all that in sport, and truly elevate sport in a way that it deserves, instead of just being mere entertainment. Okay? If it is mere entertainment, we are doing a disservice to society, because sport has a value and a capability far beyond just offering entertainment for 1.5 hours in a football match. Maybe it goes over time, but there you go. If we truly look at the value of sports, then whatever the government looks at, are we truly resourcing sports properly? Sometimes, the Pink Floyd song I quoted to you before. Did I mention that one?
Yes, you did.
For want of the price of tea and a slice, the old man died. So sometimes we are too afraid to spend that little bit more. That's why the podium program was a brave attempt to address all of this. Actually, the podium program is not just for the top athletes. The concept of the podium, its philosophy and its execution, is actually for all athletes who are representing the nation. Because in the end, if you take care of the performance, you're taking care of their lives as well and how they conduct their lives. So there'll be no more issue of what happens after sport. When I finish sport, when I finish my career in sport, what will happen to me and all that? Because it's all planned. There will be a plan before you become a top athlete, when you become a top athlete, and after you become a top athlete. Because if we want athletes of the future to have any confidence that they will be taken care of, they want to see us treat ex-athletes better than we're treating them. Okay? If they say, oh, look, if we have any more news about this athlete, sometimes athletes also have to exercise some sense of self-responsibility. At the end of the day, if you want to enjoy it, but you have to put yourself in as well, not just in training, but in personal development, in a way that will make yourself not only a better athlete, but a better human being, a better worker, a more productive person overall. Then it is easier for us to take care of your best interest, easier for us to sell the idea of taking you as an employee with that organization, of offering you opportunities to become to go to university and bettering yourself. This is not an issue of helping you just because I was a national athlete. The reality of the fact is that you have to help us to help you. So in a way, if you exercise a good measure of responsibility to yourself and to your own personal development, and of course we help you. The one thing I know, Richard, is that we cannot want anything for somebody more than they themselves. If I always mention this, if we are doing all the work, right, and everybody is like a baggage on top of us, then it will not work. It's a waste of time. Might as well not start anything. So the most important thing is for us to identify the structure, the operations, the monitoring, the evaluation, and of course putting the right culture into all of this. Culture is about culture of objectivity, culture of evidence, and of course culture of integrity. So I feel that there's so much, because I hark back to my original statement when we first opened this, is that sports is still a cross-section of society at large. Sports is not just for high-performance sport athletes, if we are focusing on that, it's good. But we also lose the fact that sports is a social engineering tool, a powerful one, that will stand this nation in good stead in a way that will go beyond the confines of sport alone. You will help youth development, health, and societal indices, and then crime prevention, so on and so forth. I always like to and then in the end, we always pine for the days of the 70s and early 80s when we had Mokhtar Dari, Santokh Singh, Sochinan, and the late Arumugam, the late Arwah Mokhtar Dari.
What a team!
All of them. Yeah. How did they develop? And when you see that sort of team, you're proud. Sometimes you may have a bit pockets of success here and there, but that success, why it's not sustainable? You see, sometimes we're like beating our heads against the wall. You say, oh, we spend a lot of money. Oh, it is not about just throwing money, It's about throwing money at the right time, at the right pace, in the right proportion, So it's very much the same like the periodized training plan. This adaptation to, you need to put the right amount at the right place at the right time. Sometimes you don't need much. Sometimes you need a lot. But the thing is, you must always have faith. Sometimes I feel that with our combined interest, belia dan sukan, you must also address the bridge between belia and sukan. And when you address the bridge between belia and sukan, then it truly gels together, and they will help each other very much. We have made this point in discussions over the years many times. And there are always ongoing programs which are actually eminently viable and very good in intention. It's just sometimes it just lacks that bit of execution, and sometimes it just falls victim to that thing you were alluding to. Bila sekali air bah, sekali pasir berubah, that sort of situation where changes are made. Sometimes you just have to have trust, a faith in trust in the goodness. You may tinker with something, the small details here and there, but essentially you have to respect that. For example, the podium program, yes, and MSN and ISN together or apart, as you mentioned before. Now, the number of years it took to arrive to 2011 was so long. So many clever people, committed people who put into it, and suddenly somebody who comes in and asks me that somebody has thought about it all, practically for about 2 weeks, and decided that it is good to put them together again. So I responded, I don't think so. If any single person or a small group of people can declare themselves to be considering things better, they're more intelligent and clever than this many groups of people over 3 or 4 years, then let me know. Because at the end of the day, is it necessary because it is needed, or is it necessary because you want it? So this is something that we need to respect. If we have something, we protect it, we improve it. Yes, sometimes it's not a matter of spending more or doing more. It's just perhaps just spending correctly in its right proportion, right place at the right time. It's all a matter of balance. I feel balance is a very important thing that people will forget. They always think that doing more or spending more is the key to everything. But the thing is about doing or spending more judiciously, and then with more responsibility and accountability.
Yeah, you mentioned it 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
I did.
Yeah,
it was too long ago. I forget a bit.
So anyway, that's all fantastic. It's such a passionate discussion. It's already 1 hour 40 minutes.
The same as before.
Yeah, we have to bring it in. So unfortunately, I have another video conference on my own to attend after this. Some work.
Understood.
But Dato, I don't know. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think we may have to have part 3.
Really?
Yeah, because you see, anyway, you are a walking history of sports, and we have topics like sports governance, which we didn't go into that detail, And then actually, we have not really addressed this issue, sports developments, reforms. To be fair, throughout your discussion, the last two sessions, you have peppered it with what you think should be, ought to be. You always add that in. So that's why every time you speak, you talk about the past, what happened, process to change the problem, and then way forward. I noticed that it's always been your format in your discussion. But anyway, we can discuss the part 3 later. But I must say, Dato', thank you. It was another really, really fantastic discussion. I don't know whether we can ever end our discussion. Already, I think I saw Gary Kwan mentioned, can you please go for another part 3? Philip Liu, can we do a 10-part session? And then even
really wants 10 parts.
He said we do a 10-part series. And then Nick Razin put this down, said looks like we need part 3, LOL. So then before we end, I thought we've seen some comments, particularly from top officers from ISN. We see Rohan, for example, we talk about this, ISN need to execute its act to create more private run professional services. He also gave comment that the old model of government control and centered sports and high performance has to change. Private investment in sports is the way. It is high time that greater responsibility and accountability is given to NSA with strong governance. So with a lot more topic here. And in terms of sports law, Dato, usually there are these 4 areas that we look at. Number 1 is, of course, doping, which is a pure sports law area. Then the second one is sports governance. Third one is sports integrity. The fourth one is the sports rules, the tournaments and whatnot. So these are the many smaller things below sports, like branding, marketing, image rights, media rights, blah blah blah. So there are a lot more things which we haven't touched, Dato. And the funny thing is, all of what I mentioned, you know those areas. So that is why you are the ideal one center speaker for everything.
Thank you. You're too kind.
But even Halim said, would wait for part 3. Thank you, Halim. So in the case, Dato', maybe just to round it up, can I invite you to summarize for today, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can then slowly bring this to a conclusion today. Can I invite you to summarize your topic today? What do you want, your last words for today to your viewers?
Well, I'm grateful for the continued opportunity to air my views and all that. Of course, these are just my opinions, and we look forward to more input from those who are listening to us today. And perhaps we had mentioned this before about including maybe some input from members of the media or the press who might have certain insights that might present opportunities for us to feel or to address issues from our own point of view. Because sometimes, most of the time, we need to have a comprehensive look at the thing, but it all comes in bits and pieces. Thank you again, Richard, for this part two. Very kind of you. And I as long as the Almighty, gives me good health and a healthy mind and all that, I will always be keen to help.
Maybe we can do a part 3. If we do that, so I think we should talk more about MSN. The last 2 topics is heavily on ISN, simply because of your legacy. But your legacy also includes heavily on MSN, and I think you should also give a insight about Adamas. Many people don't understand Adamas. Many people don't realize the importance of Adamas. And the officers in Adamas, I know for a fact, are working tirelessly to get it up and strengthen Adamas. So perhaps you can speak for it, So these are areas I think you can talk. And in fact, like here, Gary asked a question, but I'm sorry, Gary, I don't think we have time to address this. But he asked, why is local academicians not given the opportunity to serve our national athletes with ISN? The funny thing is, Dato', the ISN Act actually have this. That was
Well,
why
actually, I'm sorry, but Gary, that is not true. In my time, I had worked with Rabindrajit Singh, Professor Teo, so many. But it's a two-way street. It's two-way street. When I work as a medical doctor in sports medicine, I reach out to surgeons in the universities, radiologists in universities, and if there's any sports science issue, it's just a matter of both of us coming together and meeting, and then trying to work a way of looking around. Most of the time it's project based. I've worked with people from UTM, UITM, USM, so on and so forth. So it's just a matter of just getting together and working.
Thank you, Dato'. Yeah.
Together again. But it is not true. It's not true that we have not worked with universities. The evidence says otherwise.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Gary. And there you have it from Dato', that they have been working with the universities before. And I was about to say, Dato', just now, that the Act of Parliament for ISN does have access to deal with universities, which we may address this in future with other speakers. We are thinking of that.
I think it's a good thing to address. Because we've always looked at academicians, because it's like this: we are practitioners and they're academicians. There's a point in between where we can help each other, because academicians are people who are into research and education, and we ourselves can also contribute to them in terms of education, and they themselves have expertise that we can deploy in the service of athletes. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, Dato', thank you so much for your time. So it looks like we will have a continuing part where, like I said, I think we should have a discussion about how MSN work. And like I said, Dato', this topic I'm holding, I am not here to talk on behalf of anybody. I'm here to help the hundreds and thousands of people out there who are listening. The young university undergrad who wants to do sports law, the experienced businessman out there who thinks, hey, maybe we can invest in sports, or the journalist who's listening in and say, my God, there's a lot more things I didn't know. The whole idea of this set of webinars, particularly for sports, is to create awareness, to make people consider alternative issues, give solutions. I always do webinars with the purpose to give solution, not to talk. Anybody can talk. It's easy to talk, but it's better to offer ideas to solve things.
Easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, and you've been fantastic. You've been giving us so much insight and ideas, etc., etc. And I love it. I really enjoy and it's an honor to host you, Dato'. Again, and I think we will do a third one soon. Akan datang, So with that, ladies and gentlemen, three things. Number one, can I first get everybody here to give Dato' a round of cyber applause? It's really nice to hear Dato' again. We will do part 3, and then number 2, I think Dato' and I speak on behalf of Dato' also, that we want to thank everybody who's watching it. Dato', our video is being shared many times. So actually, it's not being watched at RWC, it's being watched in other places. So the last video, as you know, went more than 1,000 views. So I wouldn't be surprised if more and more people will view this. So we want to thank everybody who is watching in. And thirdly, I want to say this, that we have the birth of this RWC webinar was because of the pandemic. RWC, we were always holding seminar in our office building. We have a bungalow, so we conduct our office, our talks there. And the irony, Dato', we will invite you to come to our office to give a seminar. But now it looks like you don't have to come to our office, we'll just do it online. But the point is that the pandemic has made us change the way we live, the way we deal with each other, the way we hold seminar, webinar like this. And we will need to continue fighting this pandemic. It is not over yet. Korea just announced a new lockdown again. And we all thought Korea was over, but it's not. So I would urge all Malaysians to remain vigilant. Kita kita tabah bersama, and together we will prevail. We will prevail this, and we are prevailing, but it's not over yet. So let's continue working together. And last but not least, walaupun dah lepas, izinkan saya mengucapkan selamat hari raya dan maaf zahir dan batin kepada semua umat-umat Islam yang tengah mendengar video ini. Thank you, and selamat hari to you too, Datuk.
Terima kasih.
Kalau
selamat hari raya.
Kalau siapa-siapa ada ekstra lemang nak hantar tu, aku bagi alamat, tolong hantar ke rumah saya. So no chance to have lemang this year. So thank you very much, Datuk. Hold on, don't go yet. I'm going to end the broadcast. I would like to thank everybody here. I wish all of you the best of luck and take care of yourself. Goodbye from Richard V. Chambers. Bye-bye.